welcome to the Artistry House, the home of the British Institute of Professional Photography. Today we've got one of our business days and we've got the pleasure of having Mr. Nick Fisher on the line. Nick, for those who don't know, is the CEO of Venture Studios. So we were very, very honoured and very pleased to be able to have an interview with him today because I know he's such a busy man. So welcome, Nick. Nice to see you.
Yeah, same to you, Martin. And thanks very much for asking me to do the interview.
No, I really do appreciate it. And I was just saying to you before we started recording that I know that a lot of our members are going to be fascinated in this interview because in one way or another they've seen kind of Venture Studios from the original concept, and I've always said to people that it was an amazing thing. It really brought family photography to the front, really, where I think people were just sick of seeing brown backgrounds and chaise longues and plastic pot plants, and Venture really just smashed it out of the park when they was introduced. So just before we kind of start talking about Venture, I'd like you to explain a little bit about your history and where you've come from and why you got interested in acquiring Venture.
Okay, yeah, sure. So my background, Martin, has always been in what I call consumer-focused, design-based products. So literally from quite a young age, probably from when I was 20, I got involved actually in the greetings and stationery sector, which was all about designing, creating imagery, working with artists, a little bit of photography, but mainly sort of graphic artists, and then turning those images into finished product. So my career, over 25 years, my sort of big career, my big job was building a business in the greeting sector, involved in design, creativity, and manufacturing. I then got to a particular age, and I'm not going to tell you my age.
25.
Yeah. Where I thought, it was just time for change, just sort of change my, I suppose, just the way I work and get out of a big corporate business which I'd created, and then use the skills and the knowledge that I'd got in other areas. And basically, that's where I was looking around, and Venture, which I knew of, had actually sort of come onto my radar through one of my contacts.
So Venture as a business had been around at that point by how long before you kind of?
I've owned it now for nearly 10 years. So I used to call myself the new boy. I'm not the new boy. I do now understand it, and my franchisees don't say, well, like they used to in the earlier days, you don't understand it, because I do understand it. But it had been going. It started in 1998, and actually last year we celebrated our 21st birthday. And I've been involved, as I said, now for nearly 10 years, and hopefully, I believe actually that I evolved the business and the model from where the original founder probably intended it to go. He founded it. He then sold it. It then probably ended up in the hands of some people that really didn't do what they should. In fact, they didn't do what they should have done with it. It went for crazy growth, not enough investment in. The market changed and it did struggle somewhat. Certainly around 2008 when the whole banking crisis. So Venture has been through a crisis already, interesting enough, but it did get affected then because it had a lot of historical debt in the business. So
it was a. I mean, I remember I've been around, as you know, in this industry now for all my life. But I do remember kind of Venture coming onto the scene, and it was an absolutely amazing. They went from nobody hearing them to them being 90 odd studios throughout the UK and overseas as well. And then all of a sudden, I think you're right. It was around the time of the financial crisis. We started disappearing and studios started closing, but the model was amazing. So it was about the time that, say, 10 years ago, and you were kind of looking for something else to do. And so what attracted you then to Venture? What was it that
well, as you say, I mean, interesting enough, the studio model was good, but the business model they were operating as a corporate model was flawed. And it ended up being owned by the Royal Bank of Scotland, who didn't really want to own a photography business. So they were looking, obviously, to try and sell it. And as I said, it came across my radar. The reason that it ticked my boxes was that I had a history of sort of turnaround operations. So I bought businesses in the past during my previous career and fixed them. I sort of like to do stuff like that if I believe that there is a good opportunity in the future in the business. So looking at this one, it ticked, as I said, my boxes of it's a creative business. I really like that. I believed in what it was doing. The fact that it had historically revolutionized or social portrait photography. I mean, you know, it made a big difference. And the style is called the venture style. Other photographers have copied what they call the venture style. And the brand had a lot of heritage. Coupled with also manufacturing. So again, I'm used to running factories. I understand plants and equipment, and having the manufacturing plant linked to the studios worked very well for me. And also, I had worked in other jurisdictions, foreign countries. So it had a little American division, a Hong Kong division, and those also quite excited me. So I took on, I must say, what I thought was, let's say, my retirement business. Not that I was at the age of retirement, but I called it my retirement business. You never retire, and a business always needs attention. And so it was a much bigger task than I envisaged, but very satisfying. A lot of work to do with it.
And I think one of the things that you just said there, which is really interesting, and people often forget, is that there is a manufacturing side of venture. There is a lab, there is a frame makers, and it's quite a busy. I've had the pleasure, before I actually got to know you, Nick, I've actually been to the plant, and it's impressive. And people forget that's also part of the organisation as well. But it is there, and it is another challenge as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. But the opportunities actually were very great in the lab as well as at the studio end. So the two things are very much linked together, and our job is to ensure. I mean, if I just take you through how it operates. So a studio, and in fact, that's really one of the big opportunities. That it was called Venture Photography. I then rebranded it Venture Studios because a studio is a place where you go and experience something. It's very much an experiential event for a family. You know, a photographic studio, a recording studio, where you go and have a workout, Pilates, yoga studio, everything's called a studio. So it's a place of experience. And we weren't really pushing enough on that. Also, just to update it, make it more friendly, more family friendly, invigorate the brand. So we created a lot of new brand values for Venture. As I said, rebranded Venture Studios. Funny enough, 8 years later, I've pushed that a little bit further, and we now call it the art of photography, because it is an art, and our photographers we call photographic artists. We talk about a digital artist, but we forget sometimes that actually the art is in the creation of the image before we start doing the digital work. So I like to call our photographers artists as well. But sorry, just jumping back. So the link with the factory is very important, that the quality of the photography that's taken is then taken all the way through, and the final product that people get in their homes is absolutely 100% the best quality we believe in the industry. We have set standards that are second to none. So really important, and at the right price as well.
Yeah, you're right. And the work I've seen, I was you very kindly invited me to your recent national awards, where you get all the studios together, and it was a blinding party and some amazing images. So what we're going to do now, Nick, we're going to show a bit of a slideshow with some recent work from Venture, and then when we come back, we'll just talk about a little bit more about the business model and the changes that you've made, and also how you're going to deal with the crisis as we move forward as well. So
yeah, right.
So everybody watching, enjoy this. This is some Venture work for you. amazing images, and this, you know, since the dawn of venture, the one thing that has always happened is that it always moves on. The style changes, the brand is always moving forward, and I know that some of the people kind of on your management team, they're just so excited all the time. Every time I speak to them, they're really moving things forward. The way that they talk about, with passion about the brand, about the photography, about the customers, and also about the staff that you have working for them in the franchisees as well. So if you could just give us a little bit more of an idea of the business model. I know you've kind of talked to explain it, but talk us through how that kind of works now with the studios.
Okay, so totally customer focused. That was my sort of main mantra when I first got involved, that everything should be about the customer. How we acquire them, how we photograph them, how we communicate with them before, during, and after the session, and how we communicate with them in the future. So we want to keep a customer for life. We want them to tell family and friends about their experience, and hopefully say great things about us. The best customer that we can ever have, in fact, the biggest spending customer we get is a returning, we call them past clients. Yeah, when a past client, say that quickly, comes back, and mostly they spend more money than they did previously. So a happy past client is what I'm trying to achieve every time. Yeah. Yeah. In terms of where we refine the business, you know, when I got involved, I looked at it, and if I go back to pure basics, which are the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, promotion. If we take the product first, I split it into 2 areas. The photography, we looked at that. That's what they're coming in for to start with, before they even think about the frame and the cost of the frame and the style of the frame or the metal, etc. And we have seriously upped our game in terms of our photographic styles. I would hope you've seen that. You said that obviously you attended our award ceremony. Yeah. You've seen the quality of our photography, and we do work hand in hand with you guys. You know, in the past you've helped judge our annual awards, which is great. We want you to get involved more in that in the future. But the photography, we lead with photography. We then, obviously, it's how we package that photograph or suite of photographs up for the customer. A lot of investment then went into new product development, into the factory, new equipment, and you know, even if you take our Lumino product, which is aluminium, the specification of that product is high. We call it high density, so it's an HD equivalent. It's beautiful product, and the customer gets that home. They're very happy with it. Yeah. Product. If I then come on to price, when I first got involved with venture, they were seen as very expensive, and I thought, you know, I agreed, and I wouldn't want to sell anything to anybody that I wouldn't want to buy myself. And when I leave venture, I want to feel that actually I've had good value for money in terms of the session and finally the product that I've got at home, or products. I reduced the cost of all our manufacturing, all our purchasing. We changed the business model in terms of how we then push the pricing out to the customers. And I've got to say, we've seen an increase in order value across the board. Last year, we grew at about 15%. This is before, in fact, we were doing pretty well this year up to mid-February or beginning of March. But actually, our average order, which I'd like to share with you guys, is just over £700. It's sitting around £720. That has come about from the right product at the right price, but also we work very closely with credit providers, so that, you know, there can be spread payments similar to buying a sofa, and it works really well as part of our model. Yeah.
And I suppose when they're buying a piece of art, they're not, you know, like as you said about a sofa, and maybe they do need to take credit on it, but it's a much more worthwhile investment in that it actually grows in value. A sofa kind of wears and you have to change it maybe 5-10 years down the line, where a piece of art, a piece of family art, is only going to increase in value. It becomes an heirloom, doesn't it? That's going to, you know, last forever. I really believe that. So yeah, brilliant.
Well, there's an intrinsic value to it, and I'm glad you used the word art, because that's where I introduced the art of photography. because it is a piece of wall. You know, primarily we want to sell, you know, multiple images, but primarily it's always about that impact image. And you know, the piece of art in people's homes that they really value. You know, who's the better subject than yourself or your family in that picture? And then just to finish off on if you like the 4 Ps, so product, price, place. Again, just make the studios more friendly. We changed how we did things. We put products on the walls in a nicer way. We changed all our marketing materials, and just want to make people feel happier in terms of good quality retailing. And that goes hand in hand with the last P, which is promotion. So we promote in a softer, in a very soft way. We want people to come to us, and Venture sadly had a history of you know, a bit of high pressured selling, and I just wanted to eliminate that as quickly as possible. And now when we do customer interviews, we do a lot of secret, you know, shoppers, etc. It's good feedback. People, I just want happy people. We do nice stuff. I want people happy. Yeah. Happy customers, happy staff. So.
And I know this is kind of probably very difficult to answer, but if you was to describe a venture studio day to day, you know, what kind of would people expect to see from the number of staff, how many photographers, number of portrait sittings roughly that would go through a week? What's kind of the day to day for a typical venture studio?
Okay, there's not.
No, there isn't a typical one. It's a tough one, right?
Well, I can give you an average one. Yeah. So yeah, there isn't typical, because to be honest with you, it's driven by the owner of that studio. Yes. Yeah. And their desires and what they want to do, and based around their skill set, and then who they employ alongside them to actually make it work. But what I will say is that anybody, that follows the model, if you follow the model, it works. And everybody, 2019 was a great year for us. We currently operate 18 studios in the UK, 2 in America, 2 in Hong Kong. That's our business. And it's been growing, and it's continuing to grow. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. Yeah. But the average studio in the UK is somewhere around £450,000. So pretty good. You know, a lot of other studios that have joined, or that we speak to, people that have joined us, we're turning over half of that. Yeah. Just by our own national marketing, our own website, if a studio opens in a new town tomorrow where there isn't one, we can guarantee, and literally we can guarantee, anywhere between 80 to £100,000 worth of sales or customers value just by being part of the Venture brand. It's a great start. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Sorry, jump back to your question, because I'm.
You're already back in the numbers, you can tell.
Yeah, I'm back. Yeah, I've distracted myself by the numbers. Yeah, apologies for that, Martin. Keep this bit in because it's funny. But sorry, just refresh me on the question.
It was, what would a typical studio look like? I mean, how many employees? How many photographers?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, yeah. So from the studio owner. We then have, obviously, it's about the marketing side, so customer acquisition and communication. So somebody needs to do the marketing. That could be a separate person or the owner. Obviously, then photographer, depending on the size of the territory in the studio, 2 to 4 of those. Yeah. Who can also do digi work, or possibly a digital artist as well. Yeah. And then front of house, somebody that looks after people, again, multiple role, and then certainly viewing, very important that the work is viewed properly, professionally to the customer. That could be the owner, it could be a photographer. I find that the best, if you like, the best order values that we get are when a photographer is multi-skilled, that they can shoot and view their own work. But to be honest, the venture studio is anything from a couple of £100,000 turnover to, as we said, well, average 4 to 500, but 700, £800,000. All of them work at any size, depending on the territory size, as long as the model is followed. Yeah. It's a good little model, which has evolved again over 21 years, and certainly over the last 5 years, we've done a lot of work in terms of training, In fact, during the course of the crisis at the moment, we're spending a lot of time actually rewriting all of our business operating model. We're putting a lot of stuff together for online video content training. So we're using this opportunity to do the things that we've been wanting to do for a while, where we've all been too busy running the business to actually do this stuff. So there is an upside, not many upsides to the COVID situation, but to be honest, I would encourage all of your members just to relook at how they were doing things and whether they can do them, in a better way, in an alternative way. I can come on a little bit, or in a little bit about what we're doing and our plans for what happens next.
So you did mention that, the relationship that you have with British Institute of Professional Photography, and I'm very honoured and that you do work with us, and I was very pleased when your team gave me a call when I took over this role 10 months ago, and we're building a much better relationship with us than we had. But I'd like you to talk to why you feel it's important that your photographers are qualified and that they become British Institute BIPP qualified photographers.
Okay. Yeah. Well, first of all, I might add that I'm not a photographer. And my team and all the photography team within Venture accept that, but I do have a very strong view on what a good image is. But actually, the BIPP or Professional Institute is really, really important to me. Again, part of one of the things that I looked at was the fact that at the time of when I bought the business, the smartphone was really developing, and consumers, customers felt that they could take really good pictures. And I had a few friends that would just hold up their phone and say, "Hey, well, what do you need a camera for? Look, this is it." And I'd say, "Yeah, okay, sure." But there is no substitute for a professionally trained photographer using a professional camera in a studio environment. There is none. Yeah. And then I'd show them some of our images and shut them up. And then I'd invite them into a studio and then actually
make a lot of money
get them through the experience and take the money from them. Because actually, I really use our relationship with you in a big way. We have the aim is through our training programs that every photographer that joins us becomes qualified with you guys. We then put the certificates up in the studios so that when customers come in, they can see these are proper photographers. In our other jurisdictions in America and Hong Kong, the customers love it there. Yeah, British photographers, yes. Trained to British standards. A lot of customers think that. I call them professional phone users. They're professional selfie takers. Yeah. But the photography is nothing like you can get in a venture studio, because I insist that all of our photographers become members. Yeah. And you saw that when you came to our awards. Part of that is not only celebrating the best imagery, but also we celebrate the people that have qualified during the year, and they came up and they shook your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as well.
And to be honest, for us, it's a great investment. There's not many people I'd say I'm happy to pay their fees, but we're happy to pay your fees because actually it really adds value to our customers' understanding of our business.
And I think the other thing as well, from a business point of view, and because we're moving more and more, we're start to work with a lot of e-com companies now. That from a HR point of view, it helps because it ticks boxes from HR to say we are helping them with personal development of our staff members. We are kind of moving them to the next level. They're going to walk out of our business at some point more qualified than when they walked in. So it's twofold, isn't it? It's yes for the customers to the purchasers of photography to understand that they're being photographed by somebody with professional qualification, and also from a HR point of view, from a business, then you are developing. And I know you put a lot of time in developing your staff and your photographers and everybody involved in the business.
Yes, yeah, oh, definitely. I mean, you've seen the passion. Alicia on the photography side leads that. and she's been with venture a long time, totally gets it, but also how to evolve the brand. Under normal circumstances, we would have visited a couple of shows by now. We go looking together to get inspiration from the photography world.
Yeah.
Some of the past judges, I mean, I had one judge one year who was a top fashion photographer. We've had some amazing people judge our work. And he said, you know, I'm jealous of you guys. He said, I've always had to employ professional models and pay for them. He said, you are taking members of the public and making them look like professional models. You're using or adopting methods from the fashion and advertising world and bring them to the consumer market. He said, this is amazing. And I thought, you know, all credit to our photography team. Yeah. You know, I won't take credit for that, but it doesn't half make me happy when somebody, you know, gives me that accreditation. Yeah, amazing.
Fantastic. No, it's brilliant stuff. So we're obviously, I think we're on week 8 of this crisis now, and I think you probably a little bit longer because you obviously had Hong Kong, probably hit Hong Kong before us.
Yeah.
But from kind of running or running the business and as a CEO, what's been your response to the crisis up to now? What did you have to do, and what things have you had to put in place to get you through this?
Okay, well, I would say, you know, I took on venture as a business in crisis. So, but nothing like this. I mean, I've had a long business career, and as I said, my background has been in turnaround operations. Which has, in a way, made me a little bit more match fit than many to deal with a lot of the. That said, you know, the words unprecedented have been used, and this situation is totally unprecedented. I had to look at this from many aspects, from our customers' perspective, from a studio perspective, as a franchisor, because obviously they are independent businesses, having to advise all of those guys. And as a collective group, you're in a stronger position because, you know, we're all helping each other, and they're looking to us for advice. And then obviously we have our lab, which is our manufacturing plant, but we also had to deal with as a separate entity.
Yes.
I would say that the problems that we're experiencing in the UK are exactly the same problems as we have in Hong Kong and America. This is a global crisis, so we're adopting the same sort of furlough situation. So let me give you a typical example of a studio. The owner would have hopefully furloughed, or he would have furloughed his staff. Probably kept himself in communication with us, so he wouldn't have furloughed himself. And then, depending on his arrangement with his landlord, would have come to, you know, maybe a rent freeze or a rent delay, which has basically cut the 2 biggest costs in the business. Then it's about customer communication. Any orders that were outstanding, we put things into play to explain to them that don't worry, your orders are in the system. And we actually have at the factory, we're ready to go. The minute we reopen, we fulfill those orders, they get sent to the studios get them out to the customers, which is important. So keep the customers happy, keep calm within the business. We kept communicating. We do a weekly ops update. We now produce something called Venture Weekly News, where we send out so that anybody that I say is within the venture family, starting from the studio owners, even though they furloughed their staff, we want them to share that information. Yeah. Also, from a photography point of view, in terms of continuing professional development, Alicia created some helpful sort of tips and programs for them just to do, you know, work while they're sitting at home, because people are very frustrated sitting at home. Yeah. Certainly creative people, they will find their own creative work to do, but why not, you know, just develop your own skills for when you come back to work.
Yes.
I put us into what I call standby mode, both at the studio level, at the factory level. Everybody is waiting to go. Customer acquisition will be a little bit more tricky, and also how we then get people back into the studios. We've upped our game on our digital communication in terms of e-campaigns, and we've been selling weirdly, well, actually maybe not weirdly because people are at home online, but we're selling more vouchers for sessions over the last 6 weeks this year than we did last year.
Wow. That's
yeah.
cool, wasn't it?
Now it's about starting to call customers to do forward booking. The experience we've had in Hong Kong, just to share that with your members, in terms of a business that is more about socially intimate rather than socially distant, families have come in with masks on. Actually, it's a very mask culture anyway over there. And it's now started to open up. If you've seen on the press, there's been a lot of people walking the streets. Weirdly, restaurants and bars are open. A little bit more distance between people. But jumping back to the studio, people come in. We give a little bit more time. We clean the studio in between. And they take their masks off. They have a relatively normal session. In most cases, our studios or our photographers will keep masks on because it just makes customers that more comfortable. So the good news is we are able to start the process of actually taking pictures. Yeah,
absolutely.
Which is the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you've got all your plans in place, and I'm sure I know you have for kind of as we start to lift the restrictions over the. Well, we're hoping to hear something this week, aren't we, on Sundays?
We are. Look, different businesses, it depends where one gets sort of lumped in. But if you take a typical venture, which is a high street, we've had all our studios incidentally applied for grants, and we've got them. So I would encourage your members to do that. And, I would say that if I have to, nobody has a crystal ball with this situation, but in talking to other sort of business people in other businesses, parallel businesses, hospitality businesses. I have quite a few friends that are in different sectors.
Yeah.
And we're all sort of viewing this now the same way. 2020, it's going to be a difficult year. Thank God the government is helping us, and all governments in all countries are helping us, but it'll be a difficult year. I would say customers, when they come out of this lockdown, what better thing to do than go and get a family, a proper photograph just to record the moment that we're all alive and we're all well and we're all happy, which is important. So, and I want to get out and have an experience somewhere. Yeah. So we're being positive about getting people in. So 2020, difficult year. 2021 is about a build back year. Build it back to where it was. And then, 2022, we'll go for growth again. I think it's going to take a couple of years to get this back, if I'm honest. But to be honest with you, we've had, before this happened, we've been building our studio base. We had a couple already sorted out in terms of locations, properties to go or to open. Those guys still want to carry on, which is great. And we're looking to open more studios because we have a business model that works. So I'm just pushing for growth. I think also a lot of people will be reviewing their careers, what they've been doing in the past, what they might want to do in the future. I would say that if any of your members, and this is I'll give myself a little plug while I'm on, but if any of your members feel that they want to talk to us, we'd love to talk to them because there are so many territories that, if you look at your existing turnover, if you work with our business model, you take our, 80 to 100,000 pounds of guaranteed leads and sales, add that to your business, get all the support from our team, Venture Franchise Services, the photography, the marketing, know that you've got a good, reliable lab behind you. It's a great business model. So I'm going for growth. I want to go back to feeling how I did that night when I met you at our awards, where it was, it was starting in the Far East. We never envisaged at that time that, within a month, the UK would be in lockdown. We had a good evening that night.
It was brilliant. Yeah, it was brilliant to meet so much of your team and all the studios. And I knew quite a few photographers, which was really good as well. So you've actually kind of wrapped up a couple of questions there in one. So one of the questions is where do you see venture in the next 5 years? And was also, I mean, there is opportunity for franchisees if people are interested and to contact you for that, but also people who are maybe just coming into photography, or that maybe left uni, or they been working on their own as self-employed, but maybe want the safety of working within one of the franchises as just a photographer. So so first of all, I guess, what do you see in the next 5 years? I think you've covered the first couple of years there. 2 years, we're going to start seeing some growth again. And also for members or people who watch this who are interested in either becoming a photographer in one of the studios, or they're interested in maybe they already have a business and they want to be look at being a venture franchise. How do they go about that, and who do they contact, I guess?
Okay, so pretty easy. Have a look at our website, venturephotography.co.uk. Mike Wilson, who's been with the brand, I hope I've got it right, at least 15 years. He looks after the franchise side. He's the first point of contact. Or, do you know, any of us, if anybody out there knows any of our people, please talk to them. You know, pretty easy to start the initial conversation. As you said earlier, at its peak, there were 90 studios. It was too much too early. I'm not saying 90 studios is where I want to get to, but you know, there's lots of room in lots of towns, cities, that basically there's an opportunity for a venture studio. So all I want to do is get us back to where we were before this nightmare started. Keep doing what we do well, which is basically taking great photographs of some great people. And just do more of it, to be honest. We've built the factory for production, or the lab, I should say, for production, because we're in a growth phase. So we have capacity. We can take on as many opportunities as people throw at us. So happy days when we get out of a lockdown.
That's brilliant, Nick. That's it's been fascinating to speak to you. I don't know if there's anything you want to finish with, or anything we missed out there that you'd like to communicate to everybody before we go.
Do you know, just everybody, keep a distance, keep well. I think I'm pleased that listen, no government is perfect. People will point fingers at them, but they're doing the best they can do as well. I think it's great the way that the public has supported this NHS, and we've got through what could have been a terrible state that we've seen in other countries. You know, these emergency hospitals, thank God, haven't been used. Yeah. Which is a good thing, and that's because people have respected the social distancing. If you don't go near anybody, you can't catch anything. It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple thing. And to be honest, you know, we've all found ways of working. You know, we're having a communication now that's working. When we finished, I'm going to be having a chat with my team. We do a weekly Zoom meeting. But there's no substitute for getting into a studio and start taking pictures of the public. And actually, the guy that runs Hong Kong, I was chatting with him this morning. You know, he's shooting sessions. So, you know, people out there still want what we do. So everybody, keep well, keep positive, and that's it. That's it from me.
Nick, good to talk. Absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for giving me some of your valuable time, and I look forward to seeing you in person very soon.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Martin.
Thanks.